Hey there, beautiful people of our digital world. Welcome back to another week of 5-Minute Messages. My name is Brian Steele, and I have the privilege of being the pastor at Hazel Park United Methodist Church and St. Paul United Methodist Church in Bloomfield Hills. Talking some more about the 7 deadly sins today. Today we are up to sloth. Nope, not the cute animal, but the idea of sloth that keeps us from a life of love. Now, when I first started learning about this sin of sloth, I thought it would be all about, laziness and how to combat that. What I learned is that there is a deeper layer to sloth, some roots underneath the tree, so to speak. I think that's really helpful in understanding this idea of sloth. Scholar and author Rebecca Dion, who I highly recommend all of her books, defines sloth as the resistance to the demands of love. I'll say that again. She defines sloth as the resistance to the demands of love. Resisting what is still required of us to love God, love neighbors, and even practice self-care in loving ourselves. And right now, especially in this post-pandemic age, I think there's been I've noticed a lot of resistance to the demands of loving God. Loving God can look differently based on how you're wired and how God created you to be. But I've found this overall theme within the church walls, where we have become spiritual consumers rather than communal worshipers. Spiritual consumers instead of communal worshipers. Maybe it's just worshiping online or just going to a church to get what you want out of it. And listen, I'm pro-digital worship. We need to be doing it. We need to be doing it as well as we can. But online worship, and specifically, doesn't just exist for our consumption. In general, a church doesn't just exist to spiritually feed people. It exists to be part of a mission with God in the world. That means it needs our active participation. And yes, at times it calls us to sacrifice. Now, sometimes churches ask a little more than they should and they burn people out. I'm not talking about that, but I am talking about involvement and not just consuming your spiritual needs, but serving alongside and with others and with God. Working in the church, I have seen and I've heard so many stories about how, to put it nicely, flawed the church is. And, sometimes people do need a break from church because of how we've hurt people. And we got a lot of apologizing to do about that. And I've also seen that sometimes people go to the church for the wrong reasons and just use it as a social club. Now, if you're part of a church community, it should be fulfilling some social needs. But the primary purpose needs to be spiritual and equipping us to be God's people in the world. It isn't just a place to go and see your friends, because when people see that that's why people go to church, they say, well, I can find that anywhere. And, at the same time, I'm also concerned that people only use the church when they need something. And I'm not talking about necessarily a crisis situation where the church really does and is called to step up, but a continual pattern of this. Because, friends, as a pastor, I can confidently say, we can't fill all your spiritual needs. We give you the tools to do that yourself and to do that alongside others. And the sin of sloth tries to convince us that what we do, what we can offer, or our presence in the worshiping community doesn't matter. That's a lie. That's not true. Your gifts matter. Your presence matters. Don't listen to that voice, because it is the sin of sloth that tries to tell you that it doesn't matter. What I am saying, it's not that God takes attendance, but I'm saying that your relationship with God needs continual nurturing. And God asks us for things in this spiritual journey, not because God is deficient or in need of something, but because God wants us to be people who are fully alive, full of love. And sloth just kind of keeps us trapped from being that fully alive person. So don't resist the demands of love. I'm going to be honest, sometimes it can feel like a burden, especially at the start when you're kind of flexing some new spiritual muscles. You try work a new muscle in a workout, it's going to be sore. Same thing with the spiritual life. But over time, we become more alive when we really invest ourselves as communal worshipers and not spiritual consumers. A communal worshiper will be filled. A spiritual consumer won't ever find fulfillment. Something worth thinking about today. That's it for today's 5-minute message. I'll be back on Thursday as we dive into the sin of wrath. See you then.